Africa's Sahel is undergoing a new kind of revolution. One that is not fought with bullets, but brought about with the help of boreholes. All across Burkina Faso, drills are digging through 100 feet of mud and rocks to reach the most valuable resource there is: water. Clean, drinkable water that's been sitting in aquifers for thousands of years, untouched by humans. The world chalked off Burkina Faso as a lost cause, a failed state suffering from water insecurity propped up by food aid, foreign intervention, and charities. But this revolution proves that the bones for self-sufficiency were always there. Only, no one ever tried to build it, until now. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has taken the risk no one else did, betting $144 million to build an irrigation system that has the potential to pull the nation out of its crippling poverty. Thirst problem. If you look at the UN's Human Development Index and search for Burkina Faso, you will find it at the very bottom, ranking 186th out of 193 countries on the list. That's because it is one of the poorest nations in the world, and that poverty is directly related to its thirst problem. Burkina Faso relies heavily on agriculture to survive, with most of its population being farmers. As a matter of fact, agriculture is the main driving force behind its economy. But to farm, you need water, which Burkina Faso does not have. After all, it is located in the middle of the most inhospitable region on the planet, the Sahel. Spanning from the Atlantic coast of Senegal and Mauritania in the west to the eastern coasts of Sudan and Eritrea, the Sahel is a climatically unstable region. This belt of land is where the Sahara Desert to the north transitions into the rainy savannas of the south. Incidentally, it has the worst aspects of both terrains mixed into one, creating a region where rainfall is scarce, droughts are the norm, and arable farmland is a shrinking resource. For the countries within the Sahel, these obstacles make it nearly impossible to achieve food and water security. But in the case of Burkina Faso, things are even worse. Not only has it been dealt a bad hand in its geography, but its very beginning was sabotaged to make sure it could never develop. From 1896 to 1958, Burkina Faso remained a heavily exploited French colony, a golden goose in the very literal sense because of its gold resources. The French colonial power worked hard to extract every last bit of this precious metal that they could, exploiting the locals to do so. Men, women, and children were forced to work day and night, mining for gold and working on cotton plantations. And in return, the locals got nothing. While the French did build the infrastructure needed to extract the wealth they were exploiting, such as railroads for transporting minerals and cotton, they never built anything that would actually benefit the agriculture-reliant local population, like, say, a proper irrigation system. When the French rule was finally abolished, things got even worse. Not by accident, but by design. The colonial powers had left behind a financial and governmental trap that ensured Burkina Faso could never stand on its own feet. These systems ensured the nation's wealth always flowed towards France and never to its own citizens. While millions of dollars left the border, the locals could not even hope to water their fields. A ray of hope arose when Thomas Sankara came to power in 1983. A revolutionary, he began work on women's rights, vaccination, and many infrastructure improvement projects. Most important among them, the construction of irrigation systems, planting millions of trees, and combating desertification. The results were staggering. The production rate of cereal rose by 75%. Agriculture, the very backbone of Burkina Faso's economy, was on the rise. For a moment, it seemed to be a new beginning. Unfortunately, that dream was cut short when Sankara was assassinated in 1987. The projects underway were discontinued. The ones already built fell into disrepair, and things went back to chaos. Since then, Burkina Faso has remained in a state of political instability. Coup after coup has caused leadership changes, corruption runs rampant, and money keeps being sucked away. The biggest problem, however, remains water stress. Less than half the population in the rural areas has access to clean drinking water. With no proper irrigation systems, the entire agriculture sector has been reliant on water. To make the situation even more dire, an insurgency in the last decade has resulted in the displacement of millions of people, leaving behind entire provinces and farmlands completely abandoned. The insurgency has also directly attacked many water points, creating even more scarcity. Combined, all these factors set Burkina Faso on the route to being a failed state, a starving and thirsty nation that had no hope of surviving, at least not without a big change. In 2022, that big change came with Ibrahim Traoré. The big investment. Captain Ibrahim Traoré took power in 2022 after 2 coups within the span of a year. The people expected what they always had with previous leaders, either a corrupt government or a powerless one. But this time, things were different. Traoré was quick to expel the French troops from the country, removing the vice grip France had over the nation's economy. He made new partnerships with China and Russia to prevent further reliance on the West. The path to Traoré's dream of self-reliance for Burkina Faso was now open, with no foreign power there to hold him down. And the backbone of this dream wouldn't be speeches and slogans. Rather, it would be the infrastructure projects, mainly water infrastructure projects, that Traoré has financed one after the other since coming to power. Among them, the Water Security Initiative stands out as the most ambitious, costing a staggering $145 million. Burkina Faso already has a bad relationship with water, as we discussed earlier. But this has been made even worse in the last few decades due to climate change. Shift in global temperatures has caused rainfall to become even more unpredictable. At its core, all the agriculture in Burkina Faso is entirely reliant on natural rainfall.
Greater variability means that you might get 20–25% of the entire annual rainfall in one afternoon. So everything that you've planted is washed away.
So this unpredictability hits very hard. The Water Security Initiative is designed to fix that completely by overhauling the nation's water infrastructure entirely. The scale we are talking about here is mind-blowing. 788 hectares of land restored into irrigated farmland, 15 water reservoirs replenished, 35 major dams rehabilitated, desertification combating plans deployed across the nation, and the installation of community-led water committees. That and many more projects are covered in this $145 million budget. It is the most ambitious hydraulic push in Burkina Faso's history since its very inception, and it is the most important part of Traoré's long-term strategy to make his country a developed nation and a regional powerhouse. Because history has proven that it is essential for the state to invest in the nation's foundational infrastructure for private investors to take an interest. Which is why Traoré has made water security his primary goal. At its center is Burkina Faso's hidden treasure. If you look at the map of Burkina Faso, you will find only 3 rivers within its borders: the Black Volta, the Red Volta, and the White Volta. Alongside 8 small lakes, this is all the water there is to be seen for the 22 million strong population. Not nearly enough to drink, use, and grow crops year-round. While the situation may appear hopeless, there is a twist. Hidden beneath the surface, there is a natural treasure that fixes this problem completely. When scientists examined the Sahel Belt in 2017, they were shocked to find that the region is abundant in groundwater. While the surface looks barren, it actually contains a large number of aquifers and water tables. Located deep underneath the ground, these aquifers have remained untouched by humans for thousands of years since they formed during ancient ice ages. Next came the big question. Is this water even usable? Nuclear-based isotopic techniques were used to evaluate the quality of the aquifers. The results showed promise, confirming that the groundwater was largely clean and of high quality, making it ready to use without requiring much filtration. This was a life-changing find for all the countries in the Sahel Belt. For Burkina Faso, it is a lifeline no one expected. A way out of its water insecurity that could be the foundation for something greater, only if someone makes the effort to dig deep. The new regime under Ibrahim Traoré has ensured that this opportunity is not squandered. Between 2022 and 2024 alone, hundreds of boreholes were dug to access the groundwater across the country. The difference this has made is revolutionary. Those communities considered too remote to be included in the water grid were finally able to get access to clean water for the first time. Millions of lives changed overnight, and backing it all up is 335 billion cubic feet of water replenished every year. But accessing this water has not been easy. The holes have to be dug more than 3,000 feet deep to ensure a steady flow of water. And for a country so poor, that is no easy task. Despite that, however, the progress has been astounding. Under the Water Security Initiative each year, hundreds of new boreholes are dug, bringing clean water to a new community each time. But the focus isn't just on building anew, it is also on preserving what is already there. The idea of digging for water isn't new in the region. There had been many projects in the past by other leaders that saw the construction of similar projects, although on a smaller scale. But for the majority of these projects, the attention by the authorities only remained until the ribbon-cutting ceremony. After that, these older boreholes and water systems fell into complete disrepair, turning into useless structures. Traoré's Water Security Initiative involves repairing these structures once again, bringing them into use once again. This is a genius use, as it minimizes cost and makes use of what is already there. Not only that, but these systems will be regularly maintained with separate funding set aside for that very purpose. These boreholes don't just solve the thirst problem, they also change how Burkina Faso operates its agriculture on a fundamental level. Most of the nation's farms rely solely on rain for water, which is extremely unpredictable now, more than ever due to climate change. When it rains, the people have food on their table. When it doesn't, the crop fails, and the nation enters another downward spiral, and its economy crashes through the floor. These boreholes provide a more predictable and consistent source of water, allowing farms to grow crops year-round. The Water Security Initiative has focused heavily on installing these systems on established farmlands that have no other viable irrigation means aside from rainfall. And in addition to that, officials are also digging bore holes strategically in places where they can be used to turn unutilized land into high-yielding farmland. This way, the agricultural capacity of the nation as a whole is being increased in a cost-efficient and sustainable way, while the existing farmland gets the resources it needs to be more productive than ever before. But this genius method is not entirely original to Traoré. Rather, it has a strong precedent in another nation that was in a similar situation: Libya. Nearly 4 decades ago, a few thousand miles north of Burkina Faso, General Muammar Gaddafi had a similar idea. Named the Great Man-Made River Project, it was truly a grand undertaking, creating the largest underground network of pipes and aqueducts in the world. This entire net was not just a river in name only. It carried 70% of all the fresh water used in Libya, from the Nubian sandstone aquifer system to the rest of the country. This project alone solved the water crisis in Libya that many before had failed to do. A water crisis that is just like the one faced by Burkina Faso. Traoré has followed in the footsteps of General Gaddafi by creating an infrastructure that taps into groundwater and provides fresh water for the country. But while there is an example to be followed in the Great Man-Made River Project, there is also a cautionary tale tied to its fate. The Libyan project fell apart with the death of Gaddafi, as there was no central authority left to continue the construction of its next phases. The sections already built were damaged by foreign powers during attacks. Whether by accident or through exceptional planning, Traoré has taken steps to ensure Burkina Faso's new irrigation system won't face the same fate. Led by the community. While the construction of the irrigation systems under the Water Security Initiative is controlled and financed by the government, the actual operations are not centralized. As part of the overall project, The Traoré administration is establishing 80 committees that will be led by the community itself. There are two main benefits of this. First, there is no single point of failure that will cause all the progress to be lost in case there is another coup. Secondly, it doesn't put the whole power in the hands of a distant bureaucrat who, without understanding the situation on the ground, can dictate the operations of the water systems, or cut off or reduce the water supply or funding to a town or village. By decentralizing the control and giving it to the locals, it creates a system where each region can decide what to build, how to build, and how to use it. This can boost crop production massively, as each region gets a more customized irrigation system designed to meet its exact needs. At the same time, it solves another problem. With the responsibility of irrigation infrastructure in the hands of the farmers themselves, they will be more incentivized to maintain it much better than a bureaucrat in the capital. The community itself will have a stake in the infrastructure, tying its interests together. A genius way of managing irrigation infrastructure for sure, but the genius of the Water Security Initiative is not just limited to boreholes. It also extends into the other main pillars of this 6-year commitment, like the dam rehabilitation. $145 million may sound like a lot, but it is actually a very small amount for a project so large in scale. After all, it's less than the cost of a single Boeing 747. With such a small budget in hand, Burkina Faso has to be smart in how it uses it. One of the ways it does so is by utilizing existing infrastructure, in this case, dams. An important part of the Water Security Initiative is the rehabilitation of 35 major dams that have fallen into disrepair due to a lack of maintenance. But this task is no walk in the park. Some of these dams are decades old. Sediments fill their reserves, preventing enough water from being stored. Several have fallen apart quite literally, with cracks and damage visible to the naked eye. The most extreme cases have even undergone partial collapse. The good thing is, the bones are already there. The only thing to do is make up for the decay and neglect, and Burkina Faso could have 35 fully operational dams, acting as important water reserves to manage irrigation flow year-round. The responsibility for making this reality has fallen to the National Office of Dams and Hydro-Agricultural Developments. Established in 2024, ONBA replaced its predecessor agency, which was dissolved after it became so corrupt that its internal operational costs exceeded its total budget. Since then, ONBA has recently secured the damaged sections of the Cayanavio Dam, readying it for the upcoming full repairs. It has also done assessments for the 50-years-old Gouleret Dam. But the most remarkable achievement was when the Lebda Dam collapsed a few months after its construction due to shoddy work. ONBA ordered it to be rebuilt this time properly, with the expenses being borne entirely by the contractor responsible for the first construction. The progress is slow, yet steady, on track to achieve the 35-dam rehabilitation mark by the 6-year deadline. But repairing these dams is only a part of the problem. The other part is reservoir refilling. When a reservoir isn't dredged properly, it gets filled up with sediments. Once the sediment collects, it reduces the total capacity of the reservoir drastically. In Burkina Faso, due to a lack of funding, corruption, and political instability, most dams haven't been dredged for decades. To fix this, the Water Security Initiative includes funds to dredge several of the biggest reservoirs in the country, like Ouagadougou's Dam Number 1, Number 2, and Number 3. All three of these went without dredging for 60 years. 21 million cubic feet of silt were removed during the rehabilitation process. To put that in perspective, that's about 90,000 truckloads. And that's just one of the projects that have been undertaken so far. There are plans to dredge 100 reservoirs to bring the water storage capacity of the nation to an acceptable level, because these reservoirs play a crucial role in agriculture. The stored water is essential to manage the irrigation channels made downstream. Hectares of farmland can be dependent on just one reservoir to keep producing crops. Due to the lack of maintenance in the past, there is a lot of arable land abandoned by farmers, just sitting unplowed for decades. As these reservoirs are refilled, those farmers are coming back, and with them comes food security. Restoring farmland. These boreholes, committees, reservoirs, and dam restorations are all being done to achieve one single target: restoring 788 hectares of irrigated farmland. That's the main pillar of the water security initiative, because if all that farmland can be restored and properly irrigated, it will completely change the outlook for Burkina Faso. More farmland means more crop yield. More crop yields directly translate into food security and economic growth. And with economic growth, the nation can finally crawl out of its poverty. At least that's the plan. A bet on agriculture. To be fair, it is a very well-made and safe bet. But farming is only part of the whole. For a strong agriculture sector, you also need more cattle farming, which is why the government is investing heavily in creating cattle tracks. But what's more impressive is the promotion of aquaculture. Keep in mind, Burkina Faso is a completely landlocked country that lacks any big lakes. Despite that, the Water Security Initiative has a budget dedicated to aquaculture. How? Well, they plan to use the reservoir restorations to their advantage. After reservoirs have been dredged and the water capacity is restored, floating cage systems are deployed within them, in which fish can be raised. This method of fish breeding has been spreading all across the country. And honestly, it's a very smart move. Not only does it maximize productivity by giving the reservoirs a secondary use, but it also creates another abundant food resource. Most importantly, this is attracting private investors who want to have farms of their own, giving birth to a new industry that never really had much of a foothold in Burkina Faso. And then there are the whole other industries attached to fish farming, like fishery feed production, which is being done locally instead of relying on imports. There are also fish processing services popping up to facilitate the farms. And of course, the actual buying and selling of the yield. Not to mention that fish farms create jobs for the locals. At the end of the day, however, it all ties into Traoré's dream of a self-reliant Burkina Faso. His aim, at least so far, seems not to be to solidify his own power. Rather, all his policies point towards creating a nation that can survive on its own without needing any help from Paris or the West to survive. Sure, there are new partnerships being forged, but those are nothing like the old one-sided friendships where only the foreigners profited, not the locals. Agriculture, being the largest sector in the nation's economy, is the backbone of this new strength. But that isn't to say that there aren't any problems with this massive irrigation network being built. Libya's great river ran dry after a while because it tapped into ancient fossil aquifers. Those are the kind that don't replenish naturally. For Burkina Faso, it could be the same problem. The entire country is now relying more on aquifers than it ever did before, and building an entire infrastructure around this single water source may not be a smart move in the long run. Some of the aquifers being used for these projects are also non-replenishing. Once that water runs out, it's gone forever. All the investment into digging those boreholes, installing pumps and filtration plants, all of it is wasted the very moment the last drop is sucked out. Even for the aquifers, which we know are renewable, more studies need to be conducted to figure out how much water can be taken out of them yearly without making them run dry. But the current government hasn't waited for that. The giant irrigation system is already being built at an astounding speed. The hope is that its fate wouldn't be the same as Libya's great river. That does it for this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.